Hello everyone, welcome back on my YouTube channel or any other platform, and this time I prepared for you modal verbs or auxiliary verbs, or sort of auxiliaries, how some linguists call it, and it's quite interesting and tricky part of the grammar of the English language, because still I come across a lot of adults who still confuse these things, and it's rather tricky because in a negative form or in a positive form, it has a little bit slightly different meaning or ideas. And basically, modal verbs or auxiliary verbs are helping words. It's just actually word which can't just be alone and stand alone in the sentence or in the context. There's necessary actually always have another active verb like after that, because then you create actually this idea or this meaning what you want to say. This time I prepared for you the first part, because there are slightly also quite a lot of them when I would like to be really clear and thorough and in-depth explanation. The first one is, as you can see around me, can and can't in a negative form. Can means ability or inability in the negative form. It means about the skills, if you can do something or you can't. I can't swim in a deep water. We can swim in the swimming pool. I can speak English. Can you speak English? Can you speak Chinese? My sister can speak French. Can you speak Arabic? So can, this skill, if you can do something or not, it's usually connected with skills. Informal permission, it means that when you talk to your colleagues or to your relatives, family, then you don't need to be very formal. So you say, can I open the window? Can I close the door? Can you please call me later? Can you write it down, please? Quite informal language. Or informal request. Can I have a glass of water? Can I have another piece of cake? Can I do this? Can I do that? So this kind of informal style, what you can or can't do. Or possibility. Possibility means that what we can or can't do and what's possible to do. So for instance, anyone can become rich and famous, especially now in a pandemic, on social media, as a YouTuber, influencer, so blogger. So it's quite interesting that yes, this sentence can be true, basically. Be careful, can is the first of these four modal verbs, which is very similar, which always talk about permission or something, giving permission and or denying permission. It is can, could, may, and might. I'm going to talk later about these three. And these are modal verbs or auxiliary verbs which express this permission or denying permission. The next one is can't, and can't actually is negative, but can't also expresses this inability, but also impossibility to do something. You can't be 30, it's impossible. I thought you were just about 20 years old because you look fantastic. So this kind of impossibility to believe that this is something true, or you just say that it can't be truth, this can't be really right, something like that. The next one is could. Could is actually the next auxiliary verb, and it has a lot of functions. The first one is asking for permission. It is actually just very, very polite and even formal to say, could I borrow your pen? Could I borrow your book? Could you please tell me the truth? Could you please write it down? It's usually connected with please, because it has that kind of feeling of very polite speech, very, very polite, to be polite, very polite. The next function is polite request, and it means could you say it again more slowly, for instance, or could you please repeat it? Could you please do something? So there's also polite request. Ability in the past, she could read when she was 4. So be careful, could is also expression or term which we use as a past form of can. So when we could do something, we were able to do something in the past, we say could. I could read Arabic 20 years ago. I forgot now. I could speak Czech when I was in Prague 20 years ago. We could swim when we were 5. Things like that, yes? The next one is, and couldn't, of course, is the negative term from this. Could. Must and mustn't. Be careful, this is this tricky part, because must is actually a very strong deduction or certainty. So very strong it's coming actually as an obligation to do something, but it's coming directly from that person or from that speaker's authority or opinion. So for instance, that must be Jerry. They said he was tall with red hair, so it is sure that he must be Jerry. So you just say it as a deduction or certainty. Or this obligation, as I mentioned, which involves actually the speaker. So when we must do something, we have that obligation. For instance, you must go to bed because mom said so. Or we must go to toilet. We must do this. So it's coming from the speaker's actually like need and necessity and this obligation, yes? Be careful because the opposite of it, and actually opposite meaning in the negative form is tricky. So mustn't doesn't mean logically opposite of must. It's basically very strong prohibition, very strong ban. It's forbidden to do. So mustn't is very strong not to. You must not swim in that river. It is full of crocodiles. You must not go to school when you are infected. We must not visit our friends when we are sick. Things like that. Must not is actually just prohibition not to do something. When you want to be milder and softer and slighter in that expression, what you have to do, this obligation, then you say have to. And in the negative form, don't have to. And in the third person singular, you say doesn't have to. It's also obligation, but based on a law or a rule. When the speaker has that obligation and this obligation exists and doesn't impose an obligation from the speaker. So it means that it exists because we are all citizens of some countries and we have to obey the law. We have to follow some rules. We have to follow some procedures, at least some. For instance, I have to wear a uniform in my school. So it's not my intention that it's coming from me directly, but we just have to wear it. And that's kind of rule of the school. So we have to. Have to is basically quite informal style, especially when you want to actually make a short term of that. But they use it all the time in a law, in a legal level or whatever other level. The opposite of it is don't have to and doesn't have to, and it has this kind of logical meaning. So have to something to do, don't have to. There is no necessity to do something, or you can do it if you want to do it, but it is not necessary. So this is exactly the softer, milder version. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. So she doesn't have to finish her composition tonight. We don't have to do everything what we are told. We don't have to wake up very early in the morning because it's a holiday. So something which is it's not necessary to do that, but you can do it if you want to. Yeah, you don't have to do this. The next term is actually may and might, and as I mentioned, it's connected logically and kind of with some kind of association with can and could. And it's all these actually modal verbs express possibility or ability. May is a possibility, but may is actually lighter and softer than can. Can is 100% sure that something can be done. We can do it. But may, there is just a possibility or a little speculation. He may run the marathon this year. So it means that we are not sure. We don't know if he's going to be ready or not sick or healthy or whatever. So there is a possibility only, which is lighter than can. Or polite permission or request. So may use in the questions. In these requests. May I go now? Yes, you may. No, you may not. May I take another piece of cake? May I pay later? May I open the window? So also very, very polite permission or request. And the last one is might, and might means actually the slightest or the softest version of can. So it means that it's very speculative, and you use it when you are completely not sure. It just might happen. It just might. So might is most commonly used to express this possibility, which is very, very low. English speakers can also use might not to make suggestions or requests. So might, you just might be like that. But this is less common in American English. Well, it is really complicated to say what is in American or British English because they use it slightly different, but basically might has the same meaning, yeah? So it has that possibility, which is very speculative, very with a very low chance that it's actually happen or not happen. It's speculation. For instance, be careful, you might fall. Or we might have another pandemic after this pandemic. We might end up as a planet without animals. something might, very speculative. Whenever scientists or doctors or politicians talk about some kind of very probable situation, just might happen. It's just they are not sure at all. Which basically nowadays a lot of people are not sure of anything. So that's also very good to use it in such context, in such sentences. So, must and have to, as I said, with must, the speakers are giving their own feelings. So it's coming from them, saying what they think is necessary. With have to, the speakers are not giving really these feelings and very strong necessity. They are just giving facts. So, for instance, there is the fact we are citizens of this country, we have to follow the rules. May and might, and this difference, we often read that the might suggests a smaller possibility than may. And there is, in fact, little difference, and might is more usual than may in spoken English. I wouldn't say so. Like, they use it somehow, may and might, and as I said, this logic is that may is a little bit more, a higher possibility than might. So you use it somehow, but might is very speculative, and might is actually the least possible, yeah? As I mentioned, can't and mustn't. We use can't to express that something is logically impossible. We can't do it because it's impossible. We can't follow these rules because we don't know these rules. We can't fly because there is no flight now. So things which are logical. And mustn't expresses an obligation, but obligation in the negative form, a prohibition as a negative obligation, not to do something. So prohibition, ban, completely something, forbidden not to do something. May, might, and could, these three, as I mentioned, are used almost interchangeably to express the possibility that something will happen. Yes and no, because as I mentioned, they use it slightly in a little bit different form when there is a speculation. May is less than can, but might is actually the least. So you have that kind of system of certainty or this high possibility from can through could, may, and might. So there is this logic. But of course, they are interchangeable because it's coming sometimes from your own feelings and how you see the facts. So yes, somebody can say that it might happen, and somebody else they say when they want to actually make it soft, make it stronger in a meaning or softer in a meaning, they say it may happen easily, or it can happen basically because it's quite probable. So this is very tricky. Like it doesn't have completely one structure, completely you say it this way or that way. It really depends sometimes on the speaker. And remember, could not versus might not. Could not suggests that it is impossible for something to happen. So could not, we just couldn't do this. We could not write, could not call because we don't have a mobile phone or something. And might not suggest you do not know if something happens. So might not, we just don't know. We might not end up like a planet without animals. We just don't know what will happen. But it could not means that it's certainly not possible, so it's impossible. So it's a little bit confusing, a little bit tricky. I think when you are going to watch this video more times, it will actually make any sense and kind of bunch of a lot of information and facts. But I think that it is logical and you can start using it in a correct way. This is just the first part. I'm going to prepare another video with would, could, should, and shall and will, because actually even will as a future form is basically auxiliary or modal verb, because we just use it when we want to express the future tense. So this is tricky a little bit. And be careful, especially watching American movies or series. Can't, the expression, the pronunciation is can't in the negative, and can't in British English in a negative form. So be careful of the pronunciation. Sometimes you have to really feel there and hear there this T, because then it means that it's negative, because sometimes it's confusing really. She can do it. She can't do it. So be careful, yes, especially with American English. I think that's all for now. Hopefully I wasn't very fast, but I think you have it around me, so you can go through this video more times and have a sort of good feeling after the video that, okay, I got something to understand it much better. Thank you very much. See you next time.